I will try to share with you my impressions of the extent of renewable energy and sustainability elements in development and planning for national projects. So I will briefly go through the guiding principles of sustainability, although I know I'm speaking to a well-versed, shared values community here, but I think it bears some benefit just to go through that. I will look at some national policy frameworks and some examples of some national projects where you actually have elements of sustainability, and then a brief conclusion. So I'd like to start with something that is very familiar to most persons, this diagram, this Venn diagram, which shows the elements of sustainable development: economy, environment, society. But I would like to describe sustainable development in the context of an evolving process that improves the economy, environment, and society for the benefit of current and future generations. And many times, persons who are involved in sustainable development think of sustainable development as an exercise by itself, but it really isn't. Sustainable development is a process that you apply to various sectors. It includes inclusion. It promotes the inclusion of a broad base of stakeholders in visioning, planning, and implementation. So my prior presenter would have in his visioning for the development of downtown Kingston and Montego Bay as a sustainability element would have included a vast number of stakeholders in terms of your local communities apart from the technocrats and the financiers, etc. Long term, we're looking at the long-term, long-range perspective. And it is said that there is an art of seeing the long view. And this is an element of sustainability that many persons are unable to see the long view of plans, of where you want to see our country going, and where we are going to take in at intervals the various changes that are happening around us in our local and international environment. Interconnection, linking and interconnecting social, economic, and environmental goals so that all three spheres thrive in unison. And that takes special skill. Sustainability also includes multi-dimensional measurements of success that link and balance the social, economic, and environmental goals of community. So we have in Jamaica been on this sustainable development path for at least 20 years, believe it or not. And as a result, we in this room can recognize a lot of the elements and have worked within systems that draw on various pieces of work that have gone on before. And the legislative process and existing legislation is one of the foundational things that have helped with our sustainability path. The NRCA Act, at the time, it was groundbreaking. And in the Caribbean, actually, we are well advanced in environmental matters. The Town and Country Planning Act, which is very dated, but has been undergoing a process of revision. And we hope that at some point, has been undergoing some revision for decades. And that is one of the challenges we have with legislation in Jamaica. The OUR Act, the Petroleum Act and its regulations, the Jamaica National Heritage Act, and a lot of other pieces of legislation that we can draw on that have elements of sustainability. We have a very good national policy framework. We are really, I would say, excellent in our policy frameworks in Jamaica. We are way ahead of various countries in the region. Our Vision 2030, which is our National Development Plan, has bipartisan buy-in. So that is our plan which we build on. The National Energy Policy, which Minister Wheatley spoke about this morning, is 5 sub-policies, as well as the National Energy Action Plans that came out of the energy policy. Address cleaner fuels and cleaner vehicles that are more environmentally friendly, as well as e-mobility. We have the Caribbean Clean Energy Program, and we have various GEF energy projects. We have the Energy Efficiency Building Code and various codes that Richard spoke about earlier this afternoon. And we have the ISO 50001 energy guidelines. And there are also a number of publications and studies, and I have included these because these provide a useful, these are useful resources for investors as well as for future planners. Jamaica is part of the UN system in terms of looking at our sustainable development goals. Minister Wheatley spoke about energy being the currency for development. And in each of these 17 goals, you can drill down and see that energy plays a very important part, whether it's poverty eradication or education or sustainable cities and communities, peace and justice, because we see that if you don't have proper lighting in some areas, the threats, the community dysfunctionalities which take place when you don't have good sources of energy, accessible and affordable sources of energy. So we're saying sustainability processes are important to prosperity because in the end they do maximize profits, competitiveness, and they add value to businesses. They mitigate environmental damage. They are very good for corporate social responsibility. It's important to have sustainability elements and a vision of sustainability for your business reputation. And when I say business, it does not mean just the private sector, but in the public sector. Community engagement, adaptive innovation, culture, spirituality, ethics, and we have valuable co-benefits to not just the local population, but to the global community. I'm just going to touch on some of the policy frameworks very briefly because of time. But when we look at Vision 2030, there are 4 national goals, and these are outlined here. Jamaicans are empowered to achieve their fullest potential. The Jamaican society is secure, cohesive, and just. Jamaica's economy is prosperous, and Jamaica has a healthy natural environment. Within these 4 national goals are various objectives. And if we look at the ones that pertain to renewable energy and sustainability, Goal 3 speaks to energy intensity, the energy intensity index, reducing that because, in fact, Jamaica has one of the highest energy intensity indices in the Latin American and Caribbean region, being like the 9th highest among 39 countries. So our energy intensity index means that we spend about 4,000, let me tell you what it is. It is 4,800 kilowatt hours we need to gain $1,000 US. Whereas, say, Dominican Republic, their energy intensity index is 2,000 kilowatt hours for them to earn $1,000. And Costa Rica is even lower. So we have to address our energy intensity index. As well as one of the other factors in goal 3 is the percentage of renewables in the energy mix. And goal 4 speaks to environmental performance, and there are other indicators that are involved in that goal 4. Using a results-based management approach, the Vision 2030 team has evaluated how well we are doing. And in both goal 3, under which energy falls, and goal 4, they fall in this improved over the baseline, 39%. In fact, the index for environmental sustainability is in this exceeding the target. So this is just another graph showing this. The National Energy Plan has these 7 goals, and in each of these goals you have sustainability elements, and this has really helped to propel the direction of where we are going with energy in terms of sustainable energy, energy that is clean, affordable, accessible, and sustainable. The National Energy Action Plans, I'm just out of curiosity, by the show of hands, how many persons are aware of these National Energy Action Plans? Right, about maybe 15% of us. And we are the ones who are supposed to be very versed about what is happening in this. But we actually had, we have 2 3-year National Energy Action Plans, and a third is about to be done. But these action plans actually have identified priority projects. And some of the priority projects identified in the first 2 National Energy Action Plans included the introduction of LNG, energy conservation and efficiency with focus on improving efficiencies in the public sector, development of renewable energy potential of the country with emphasis on solar, wind, and hydro energy, as well as biofuels, and creating a comprehensive governance framework for implementing appropriate policies, as well as legislation and other related instruments. So they had priority projects. Now, as Minister Wheatley said this morning, that they are now doing a monitoring program in which you'll be able to see how much they have achieved. But in fact, they have achieved quite a bit, because from that list you'd have seen we have LNG, you have a number of energy efficiency projects, we have had a substantial increase in our renewable uptake. Then there was the Sustainable Energy Roadmap for Jamaica done by World Watch Institute in 2013. And this important roadmap assessed energy efficiency, grid stability, and a number of other areas such as a fiscal space for making this happen. In fact, World Watch Institute proposed that Jamaica could meet 90% of its electricity needs from renewable energy. So it makes for interesting reading. And they adopted this sustainability methodology, where they looked at the technical assessment, the financing options, the policy recommendations, and the socioeconomic analysis, and drill down into each of these areas. This is something very similar to what Dr. Green presented as well. Then we have multilateral treaties and conventions. Jamaica is a party to over 30 international treaties and conventions, and they're at various levels of being incorporated in our planning and our activities on operations. But importantly, we have the UN Framework on Climate Change, We have the Kyoto Protocol. We have the COP21, which was in 2016, where Jamaica made a commitment for us as a country to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions by 7.8%. Now that commitment binds us in a way in terms of the kinds of energy, the kinds of development we can undertake because if we are to meet our commitment. Then there are various other conventions relating to culture or natural heritage, the ozone layer, and air quality. Development orders. Again, I would like to see a show of hands if people recognize the importance of development orders. How important on a scale of 10 would you say a development order is? Let's say 5. Let me see the hands of those who say 5. 7? 7? 8? 9? 10. Same hands going up, and the rest of you, and then that is going to be about 5%. So it would seem to me that a lot of persons don't know of the legality of development orders and their importance. Of course, this map is compliments of NEPA, and I'm careful to say they have a copyright on it, and there are development orders which have been developed for various parishes. And a number of them are quite old, a number of them are under review. And I have mentioned these development orders because in the review process, we have a proposal for the inclusion, and it's more than a proposal. It's going to be included in the new development orders. So for instance, a new draft for the St. James Development Order, Parish Development Order, you have a section on energy generation and conservation, and it actually addresses design parameters for buildings, it addresses energy sources, it addresses renewable energy, as well as energy efficiency, as well as environmental quality. So I'm just going to move on very quickly to some of the projects, and this is one of our premier projects, which is the Wigton Wind Farm in Manchester. We have this target, and we have 20% electricity generation from renewables by 2030, but we also hear there's 30% electricity generation from renewable by 2030. So the Wigton Wind Farm is one of our premier examples, and we have installed capacity of 62.7 megawatts. And this is really tremendous for me because many years ago when I worked with our colleagues in the Ministry of Energy then, we were saying that the maximum that we could get from wind was 60 megawatts. And now we're seeing that with time and with various evaluation techniques, we actually have, the ability to generate, to have installed capacity 3 or 4 times that amount as, and that is to come. Whether we are going to go full speed ahead with our wind development, is another matter of, grid stability, the ability of the pay, the amount that we are going to, the developers are going to get per kilowatt hour and so on, your power purchase contracts. Then there's Blue Mountain Renewables, which was mentioned before, with an installed capacity of 36.3 megawatts. We have solar, and that is actually on the roof of one of our buildings at UTEC. And we have the big project at Content, which is 20 megawatts, and then the proposed, or it's going to be coming soon, the 8 Rivers project for operate at 37 megawatts solar. Then we have not mentioned so far the standard offer contracts and the target of 1 megawatt from solar, and that could very well be increased. Barbados is way ahead. I think Barbados has about 13 megawatt now from just their standard offer contracts, but they have net metering. We have net billing, and they have net metering. So the potential for other renewables, well, over here you have the Magotty site that we have 22 megawatts coming from hydro, but in the context of sustainability, there is potential for other hydro projects to come on, up to 80 megawatt, but we have to look at our climate change issues and periods of drought and so on. Then there is biomass, which is really untapped, and the sugar cane industry. Professor Clayton spoke earlier this morning about third generation ethanol and for our transportation fuels and so on. There's waste to energy, there's ocean thermal, there's ocean technologies. And I would like to encourage UDC not to look just at solar energy for its renewable energy sources, but to in fact investigate wind for downtown Kingston, as well as for ocean energy, district cooling, and various technologies that are happening because you are really sitting in a zone with a great resource from your energy for cooling. So there have been national energy efficiency programs and campaigns, and we have a number of areas, sectors that have benefited, especially the tourism sector. We have currently a new energy management and efficiency program, which will see the expansion of a previous program, especially in the public sector. We have the SMEP, which is the enhancement project, and we heard this morning that is financed by the IDB as well as JICA. These are funding. Dr. Green spoke briefly about funding and funding opportunities, but we have a Petro-Caribbean Development Fund for Energy, which again is quite an advanced situation for Jamaica to be in compared to the rest of the Caribbean. So we have other energy projects that are being funded by the GEF, and this one will look at the 12 million renewable energy project that will look at energy efficiency in hospitals and in the public sector. Street lighting. We have approximately 98,000 billable street lights, and the government is expected to pay about $2.6 billion for electricity per year for street lighting. So this is a very hot topic and which needs immediate attention. And there's been an agreement between the government of Jamaica and the JPS to install 105,000 LED street lights. But there are other examples that have happened already. The Montego-based Elegant Corridor, where you had over almost 800 LED lights installed, funded by the TEF. And you also have the Palisades Corridor, where LEDs were installed by the Caribbean Maritime Institute. So here we have examples of how we are building in sustainability into some of our national projects. And we also have the requirement for environmental impact assessments to be done for our major projects. And those were some examples of some of the projects that we have. Studies have been done on wave technology. I think this is something that we must improve and increase in our universities, the technology concerning ocean energy. I would be remiss if I did not mention local training and public education, because this is all part of the sustainability process. And we have listed there a number of areas where training is available at our local universities, our colleges, the Heart Trust, NTA, even private sector, as well as a lot of the professional associations are now offering standalone short courses. key agencies, and if I've left out any of the agencies, it's because I didn't try to work on my presentation while I was in here. So forgive me, but these are some key agencies that are involved in the physical development process. Did I have the Bureau of Standards Jamaica? Yes, I did. And the NHT, although they've left. So in concluding, I would say we have made as a country important strides in our renewable energy sector and in including sustainable development in our development processes. But sustainability requires action throughout the economy because efforts in one sector will affect results in other sectors. And so I believe that inter- and intra-sectoral linkages need to be strengthened significantly. I would really love to see the private sector more engaged in sustainability issues because not only does it affect our trade, but it affects corporate reputation, it affects the long-term view of their viability and their feasibility. Leadership, effective implementation processes, funding, monitoring, public awareness, collaboration, and I should like to add, advocacy is going to be very important in terms of getting a cultural shift in our country. Because here we are in a room, most of us are convinced about sustainable development and renewable energy. But what about the children in the schools, the man on the street, our local communities? Advocacy, I would say, should play a very big part in taking the message across if we are to really see change. Last night as I was thinking about it, I was thinking that yes, we can have all the laws, all the written policies, all of that. But until we have this buy-in, which is a really common term, buy-in, but the people must feel that they belong to this process. People must feel that they are important to this process. And I would implore all of us as sustainability advocates and practitioners to get involved in advocacy. Technology, the use of technology, because even in the designs of technology, but technology without engagement of your community, you are going to lose. We need a win-win situation where we are combining technology, the math, the data, and everything with the people on the ground. Communication, continuous improvement are some key elements for building on our country's successes. Yes, we have a long-term vision. We have some effective policy mechanisms. We have some good administrative structures and governance. We need to improve in all of these areas. And Richard spoke about this Plan, Do, Check Act, which is the ISO 50001 ISO mantra of Plan, Do, Check, Act. We are very good at planning. We are not too good at doing much. We are not very good at checking, which is our monitoring. And acting, I would put a big star on acting or a big voice or a mouth or something on acting. We need to be more proactive. And with that, I say thank you for listening.